things Livepeer, whether it's orchestrating, delegating, broadcasting, transcoding, or developing. We're here to answer questions that you may have and have a chat about all things Livepeer. Today, we did have a scheduled Q&A session with Tom. Unfortunately, he was unable to make it due to some scheduling, so we're pushing it back a week. Hopefully, he will join us next week. He said he'd be able to carve out some time. So just keep that in mind that today is just going to be a regular water cooler chat, but next week, hopefully, we'll have Tom on here to do a Q&A. So yeah, we'll go ahead and do introductions to get started. I am Titan, been running the Titan Node Orchestrator since April 2021. And today my topic is about actually querying Livepeer data, as well as maybe even lens data. So I tried to use the graph to query data, but I'm having issues. So I would love anyone, if they have feedback querying data on the graph. Yeah, that's my topic. Next, we'll move on to Chase Media. Would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hi everyone, it's Chase here with Chase Media. I've been running the node for almost 1 year and no topics for today.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us. Ben, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hey all, Ben with the Authority Null node. Been running my node for over a year now. No topic that I can think of right now, but I might think one up soon.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us. Ryan with Night Node, Day Node, and Video Transcoder, no, Video Miner, and a new logo. Why don't you introduce yourself and a topic? Ryan, are you with us? Or are you busy at your real job? How dare you? We'll move on. Ryan, we'll come back to you. Flo, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hey, hello everyone. I'm Flo from Mouse Computing. I'm an orchestrator from 4 months. I don't have any topic for today.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us. Pon, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hi guys, I'm Pod. I've been running Pod Node since April last year. I have no topic, just listening in.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us. Brad, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Yeah, Brad here with the Ad-astra-video node. I'm coming up on 2 years running my node. It's come a long way. It's been fun this whole time as things change and keep changing. So it's been quite a ride. My topic today, I guess it's not really a topic. I was interested in if anybody knows much about the NFT torrent from Graviton and how it's like an alternative Web3 type storage, and maybe Titan, maybe that you can get them on to talk about it.
Oh, good topic. Yeah. NFT torrent from Graviton. I don't actually know what you're referencing, so I would be good to look into.
Posted on it in the centralized storage.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I'm sure the team from Graviton would love to come up here and do a Q&A, so maybe I'll invite them up at some point here. So no, that's a really good topic, and thank you for joining us, Brad, as always. Papa Bear, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Sure, I am Papa Bear, and I have been running my node since, I guess, July of 21. Wow. I do not have a topic. I was ready to grill Tom, but since he's not here, I'll think of something. But no, I'm just kidding about grilling Tom. But I don't have a topic, but I'm sure I'll chime in as things go on.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us. Marco, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
So I'm Marco. I'm running the Captain Chat Orchestrator for about a year now, I think. Maybe something more. But I have no topic for today. I was here for Tom as well, but yeah, I'll be here next week again.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us. Hunter, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hey, I'm Hunter. For those who don't know me, I'm a working product at Livepeer. I'm just a fly on the wall today.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us. Vires, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hey all, I've been running the Vires and Vires.eth orchestrator since almost 4 years now, and no topic from my side.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us. Great. I will invite other people up to stage in the audience if you guys want to come up and introduce yourself. Ryan, I'll come back to you. Ryan, are you with us? No worries. Cool. Will.
Just real quick, Titan. The stream on Xenon started for like a split second and then it disappeared.
Yeah, it told me I had an error. Well, I don't know what happened. I generated the seed
No
stream.
worries. Just wanted to make sure you knew it was.
The problem, yeah, so this is kind of annoying. Some feedback for Xenon. I have to recreate a secret and, yeah, the secret key every time. And so if a stream dies, you have to go back in, recreate it. It's not very sticky. And
Yeah, someone had mentioned that in their Telegram. It was supposed to be a feature. Obviously, it's like super secure if you only have one key that is a one-time use, but it sounds like it might be something they will change.
I think that somewhere, I think maybe even in the Livepeer Discord, they said they were thinking about getting rid of that because there was a lot of complaints about that, and it was something I noticed during the beta. It was kind of a pain.
Yeah, like YouTube's nice because you create a stream, and then your OBS settings are just like they're set. You just hit start stream, and away you go, right? So it makes it really easy to stream on something like YouTube because you never have to mess with your OBS settings. You do your settings once, and then every time after that you open OBS, you just hit the stream button, and away you go, right? It saves your credentials. But with Xenon, you have to sign in your wallet. You have to sign it to get the new one. And I'm on this like tiny little laptop right now that it takes about a minute just to open MetaMask. So by the time MetaMask even opens, like it's so much work. It probably won't stream it, but it is recording, so I can always post it.
Sounds like you're on a potato with a screen.
Yeah, no, I'm on this. My laptop is a I think it's a 11-inch or 13-inch laptop from 2011. So like, it's like
Wow.
it's really light and easy to travel with, but I mean, yeah, I can barely handle like MetaMask. So yeah, but it seems to be recording just fine. So yeah, no, I'm not on a very impressive computer right now. Okay, let's just jump right into it then. We got a couple topics that I'd like to cover. So the first one is actually, I have a question. Maybe Marco or somebody in here has experience. I don't know if you guys have experience with the graph, but I've been trying to query Livepeer graph data, but the graph has it listed as mainnet, and you're querying like Ethereum mainnet stuff, not Arbitrum. Do you know how to get the Arbitrum data?
Yeah, there's a new endpoint for Arbitrum data. I can link it in the chat. Give me a second.
Yeah, because I was like trying to use stuff in the playground, but it was all for mainnet, and I was like, wait, all this data is really old. And so by default, it's kind of annoying. I would hope that we would make it a little easier on the graph to realize that.
Yeah, like the old one is still useful in case you need to get any old data from mainnet, but there is a specific subgraph for Arbitrum data, which I use on nframe as well. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so this is right. So this is the this is where you could put in queries and get back data on Arbitrum here. Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Arbitrum.
that link goes to the web interface. It might be slightly different if you do it from an API, but yeah, it returns Arbitrum data.
Okay, cool. So that's a good start. Do you know of any like Python SDKs or anything for interacting with the graph, or how do you interact with it?
Yeah, so you have to construct GQL queries, And that's like independent from the language you use. You can just define it, and the syntax will be different across languages. I do it in JavaScript, and it will be slightly different for Python, of course. But in the end of the day, you're calling the same endpoint, so it should work just fine.
Sorry, what do you mean by that? You can just call you have to create the package, or is it just you like how does that work?
So you do a GQL query, and you pass it, the query you want to perform on the endpoint. So it differs depending on the language you use, but it should work for any language you
Right, so
use.
it's just like a request. Like is it like a curl
Yeah.
or something?
Yeah. Yeah, but the syntax may be different for Python specifically, but I usually do it in English.
Titan, there's a package called requests or something like that.
Yeah, I use requests quite a bit. So you literally just use the requests package to then send like an HTTP request with your query. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's pretty
It's
simple.
just like an API endpoint.
Right. Okay, that's really simple. Right. So now I just have to figure out how to actually query what I want, which is another thing I've been having an issue with the playground because I couldn't find the Arbitrum 1 thing. Yeah, I'm just looking to get a list of all the delegators delegated to Titan node, right? So that would just be basically a request HTTP API like request for with the query of like, hey, like pull this data into and it spits out a JSON, I'm assuming.
Yeah, you can filter by address. There are different types of filters you can apply. So you can use the link I used to view all the filters you can use. In this case, it's probably called ID or something. But yeah, it's. If you need help with constructing the query, you can always shoot me a DM because I've done it numerous times already.
Cool. Where are the where's the list of queries? Is it under docs on the right?
Yeah, on that link of the Arbitrum 1 subgraph, there's a sidebar on the right where you can find all of the data which is on there.
Oh, I see. Yeah, okay. So then yeah, you can just go right. It shows you all the things you can query and then all the data within that query kind of thing. All the stuff like that. Okay, cool. And then one last question. I'll probably play around with this because I'm trying to request all the delegators pointed to Titan node. And then I'm also trying to get all the followers following Titan node on Lens. Have you ever queried the Lens protocol?
I haven't.
Okay.
But for the first part, you probably want to query the transcoder with the address of your own orchestrator, and then do a subquery for all delegators. But that's a tricky one, maybe. So.
Right, that's for the Livepeer one.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
for Lens, I haven't tried it before, so I have no clue.
The lens one, I did read through the docs of it. It seems pretty easy. Like there's literally just a followers query, and then so it'll return all the followers of an ID. But in the playground, it was totally different than the GQL thing that you linked. Like it just like what the documentation that Lens had is different than what the documentation is for the playground on the graph. So I was like getting really confused. So. Yeah, that'll be something that I'm working on. So, okay, good to know that. Yeah, these are all graph questions, really. I got to hop over to that channel and ask them a ton of questions. But this is very helpful. Cool. Great. We'll move on to another topic. Ad-astra talked about the NFT torrent from Graviton. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've seen and kind of what your thoughts are behind it?
Sure. I talked to Transcendental about it very briefly before, but I guess it's something that anyone can run, like a Cedar node for it. And it got on a list that I thought I was going to do it, and I just have never done it. But I was getting closer to the top of the list, so I was wondering if anybody's looked at it or tried to run the seeding, like the node for it specifically. I posted a link to their product page in the chat, then also a link to the Discord, a little back and forth with Transcendental that I had. But I thought it was interesting, and new ways of doing Web3 storage is always a good thing, I feel like right now.
Where's the link? Oh, Graviton. There you go. NFT torrent product. Yeah, I wonder, like, I think NFTs are going to be a pretty big thing going forward with video, and like I don't think, like, I think the hype is gone, like, kind of like the ICO craze of 2017, but I think, like, the ICO craze of 2017 spawned all the cool projects that are, like, today actually, like, doing well, even though 99% of them, like, were, like, no good. The 1% of them are, like, still around and doing really cool things. I feel like NFTs are going that way too, where, like, you know, we have crazy monkey valuations in 2021, but yet in 2025 or 20, you'll see some, like, better utility with them, and, like, the 1% of things that are, like, really useful. So I'm pretty bullish on NFTs. I was actually not bullish on NFTs like last year or the year before because of how ridiculous it was. But now I've actually become more bullish on them because of just the utility behind them.
You don't want to buy a JPEG for a couple ETH?
You got a picture of some grass.
I want to buy a transaction that points to a picture of a JPEG. All right. Let's be realistic.
It shows you're the true owner of that. I mean, that's, you know, that's worth a couple ETH, right? I mean,
I'm the true owner of the transaction pointing to the thing.
Yes.
That which means, hey, that means I own it, right? Like if I point my finger to the Mona Lisa, that means I own it, right?
Oh yeah.
Can you prove it on chain? I don't
know. I can try. I'll sell it to you for 1 ETH.
Post it up, see if there's any takers.
I feel like 2 years ago there
would
be.
All right. I think I think I got us a little off track. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Well, I don't think there is much of a track. There's not many topics today, so I mean, other than that, who else has joined us? Speedy Bird, you're welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself and a topic? Oh, and he just immediately quit. Oh, there he is. I gotta invite him back. Speedy Bird, would you like to introduce yourself and topic?
Hey, no topic for me. Sorry, I switched from one VPN to another, and that kind of threw me off.
There you go. Well, there's a lot of no topics. I feel like there's probably a lot more no topics today because we did have a Q&A session. I want to bring up our topics from last week then, and discuss a little bit about what we're seeing as of today. Is anyone still having the issue with these independent, like, single segment streams coming in and clogging up your network, or is everyone returned back to the mean of, like, what they were at before?
Yeah, I think since they stopped doing the fast verification testing, things are pretty normal. I'm having a really hard time figuring out if I'm getting any VOD work or not. I've been below 900 way now since it was released. I don't know if there's a specific way we can check and see if a stream is VOD. But yeah, everything seems normal on my end.
Yeah, I was running. Yeah, I've been kind of comparing the 1200 weight and the 900 weight per pixel, and Chase has hers set to 900 or 8, just under 900, and I still have mine set to 1200 to see if we could compare streams. And I'll bring up the comparison here in a sec for the last 7 days. but I don't think it's been, well, I mean, she's beating me right now in overall streams, but 7 days.
Yeah, I'm still seeing a decent amount of tickets, like winning tickets coming in. So like I don't feel it. There's some sort of emergency to bounce it back up to 1200. At least for me.
Yeah. As for demand, I don't think it's I'm just looking at the last 2 weeks, and literally right in the middle is when the price changed, and there's no difference in stream height or volume. It looks like I'm sure they're in there, like VOD is in there, but based on like sheer demand, from an orchestrator perspective, it doesn't look like it's a huge difference.
Gotcha.
Hunter, is there any insight you can give us on how much VOD work goes into the network?
I wouldn't expect it to be a large percentage of overall demand at this point.
Fair enough.
Does that kind of answer your question? I don't have an exact number.
Kind of, yes. Kind of, yes. Exactly, no. But yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the potential is there, right? But just not right now at this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not like 50% of the streams coming through the network right now or anything like that.
No, I guess what I would say is that like I'm not surprised to hear that the difference isn't super perceptible for Titan Node. Like that doesn't surprise me. That there should be some bump, but I don't expect it to be huge at this point. Hopefully that will change in the future.
Fair enough.
I think it's still a relatively new feature for Livepeer, is it not? Like, for people to start using it and discover it, it takes a bit of time.
Yeah, exactly. Like you got to get the flywheel moving a little bit.
Ooh, the flywheel. I like the flywheel. Great metaphor.
I'm curious in spinning up a machine. I've got lots of bandwidth and no GPU processing, but I've got plenty of bandwidth.
Andrew, I see you've joined us. Would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Yeah, my name's Andrew. I run an ISP, and I'm trying to get into doing the whole Web 3.0. Let's build a platform to stream the world, because we have companies like, YouTube, for example, who, you want that home movie with that Disney soundtrack app? Copyright stricken. That's ridiculous. That's not fair. So that's the main reason behind what I think is the future is this. So that's my goal. So I've got a domain called epicstreams.com, and I figured either A, I'm going to get sued by Epic Games, or 2, I'm going to build a streaming platform.
Beautiful.
That's the idea.
I love it. It's a great domain.
Yeah, it is. Had it years and years. I'm like, what am I going to do with this thing? Well, now I know.
There you go. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're in the audience, please raise your hand. I've invited a bunch of people up, but if you want to come up and have a conversation, please raise your hand. I'll invite you up to stage. Yeah, Andrew, when are you going to spin up your orchestrator node? Or are you just looking to partner with other people in their operations?
I think I'm looking to partner with other people. Like I said, I have the facilities for doing it. I just don't have the technical stack as far as building the site. And I think it's one of those where I want to help build other people's stuff and then white label it, sort of deal. Might be the way to go. I don't know yet, but I guess that's a good question. I don't know. I know I've got 10 gigs of bandwidth right to level 3. It's a lot.
Yeah, that's a ton. Yeah, no, it's I'd say it's been interesting to see that a lot of the bottlenecks for Livepeer have been bandwidth and not so much GPU power.
Correct.
Which I find interesting, because if you were to use someone like Amazon, they don't necessarily, they have the bandwidth problem, but not as much, because they have less hops between their own network.
Correct.
Like when it hits an Amazon data center, it's not hopping around lots of
15 different. Yeah.
It's being transcoded on the machines there and then sent out. So we're adding this extra hop a lot of times, and if you're in a pool setting or if you have remote transcoders, which is an interesting topic. Another topic I wanted to bring up with, I was supposed to have a conversation with Alex an hour before the water cooler to talk about the broadcaster upgrade for having multiple endpoints for for orchestrators. I'd like some people's feedback on maybe the architecture or what they would think would be some important factors for doing such an upgrade. If everyone's read my posts and on Ben's issue, basically there's two ways of going about it. You could do the orchestrator side where they kind of build this middleware that handles routing, or we can just upgrade the broadcaster side to look at many endpoints. Does anyone have any comments or questions about how that would look and work and what the benefits or risks would be?
Well, I can tell you, have been in the broadcast industry for 15 years. I used to do the whole before Twitch existed thing, but it wasn't Twitch and it wasn't YouTube. It was our own sort of network deal. And one of the biggest challenges that I saw back then, and we still see now, is not every endpoint client has the bandwidth to distribute to more than one platform at once. So being able to spin up a connection that's on the West Coast and have it transcode to a server in like Los Angeles or wherever it might be, and then everything else takes over is brilliant and really, really needed, especially the ones who aren't dealing with 15 different hops. That's one of the things I like about being the ISP is I have, I'm 2 hops from the world, from anything you can think of, I'm there. It's like, wow, it's big. But when you're doing this decentralized point to point, your connections may vary. So that's I guess some of the risk of it is you don't know what kind of route you're going to get. Just because I have 10 gig doesn't mean your routing is going to get you more than a couple hundred meg. So it all depends. That's another downside too. So
yeah, I feel like that's a constant issue right now anyway. That's just like a a static issue within networking in general is going to be just routing between a public network.
Correct.
But as for
that's the tough
part. So I just want to explain some of my thoughts because I was trying to think about this. So I'll bring up some questions and I'd like your guys' feedback. What do you think would be a maximum amount of endpoints for an orchestrator? Like, should there be a cap? Shouldn't there be a cap? Does anyone have any input on that?
I mean, I personally don't think there should be a cap. I mean, I guess there isn't. Is there a downside to being able to run in as many regions as we want?
Yeah, the broadcaster has to measure each endpoint, so there has to be
Oh,
some kind
fair
of
enough.
limit. But yeah, there is a limit.
Yeah, because
Maybe like 5 or 6.
well, because yeah, no, go ahead, Brad, if you want to talk.
I was just gonna say that the discovery loop I think is like 4 seconds right now. That's the time it gives, and it starts with like 500 milliseconds, goes to a second, goes to 2 seconds. So it'd have to be under that, and you probably likely want to be quite a bit under that in general. So if you've got 100 endpoints to ping each one, it's going to take a while, or it can, as they get farther and farther away.
That's only 4 seconds right now, or is that per 4 seconds total, or is that 4 seconds per orchestrator? Because it seems like it takes forever when you start up a broadcaster for it to like actually go through all the orchestrators.
What I've seen, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong here, but what I've seen is when push a stream into the broadcaster, it goes into a discovery loop, which gets about 4 or 5 seconds, if I'm right.
Oh, after the initial, like after you initially start up the broadcaster.
And that initial lookup, I think, is it's looking to the contract data, like the net on-chain data. Pull that in, and that's what that big long one is, and then it's connecting. Trying to connect to all
I was thinking that's what you were talking about. Gotcha. Okay, that makes more sense.
Is it querying the graph for the on-chain data, or is it going straight to the chain?
I thought it was going to the chain. Marco might know or may not. I'm not sure.
I guess it would make sense because you don't need historical data; you just need current data, right?
For the discovery request from the broadcaster to the orchestrator?
Yeah, like when you start up a broadcaster and it just starts looking for all the orchestrator information.
I believe it's pinging the service address, but I'd have to double check that.
I think it is too. So it's gonna ping your on-chain address. Try
Yeah, what if we have
URL.
registered?
But how is it pulling? How is it pulling the data from on chain? Is it going directly to the RPC endpoint and asking for that, or is it like using a third party like the graph to determine what's on chain?
I think it's using it's hitting like an internal node, like an RPC, but I'm not positive. I would have to confirm that.
I think it does. I think there's a caching process that happens on Livepeer side from, if I'm remembering correctly from a conversation, I mean, a discussion with Tom just in Discord. But again, I don't quote me on that.
So yeah, so these were my concerns about building out a. I wish Alex was here because he had some feedback from the team, but yeah, like, you know, if a broadcaster is going to ping 100 orchestrators and get 100, you know, endpoints from each orchestrator to ping to get a response, right? We can't have unlimited endpoints because then, you know, you could just basically clog up the your list of endpoints with a million nodes, and it'll never finish, right? So there has to be some sort of limit, and then, you know, what is that limit?
And this is actually where you get into a lot of complexities, is when you talk about something like raising the orchestrator limit in general, is the mechanics of that discovery mechanism become pretty challenging pretty rapidly. So there are considerations there as well.
Yeah, well, you know, that's actually a really good point, because like I'm thinking, like Titan node, I'm thinking I'm gonna have, at some point I'm gonna have about 20 nodes, right? I'm at 7, but like I'm probably gonna have 20 pretty soon. Like for $6 a month, I can spin up a node in Mumbai. I can go to Japan. I can there's like, I have a whole bunch of VPSs that I have ready to spin up, where I could kind of like spread 20 across the world, and then if anyone wanted to use their own broadcaster node, they could hit the nearest one, right? So in the short term, I'm thinking 20. In the long term, you know, I'm thinking minimum of like 100, right? But how does that look from a broadcaster side? Like, is that too much? Is that too much compute on a broadcaster node, right? Like, if that's too much compute on a broadcaster node, then it's going to be very hard to adjust the amount of orchestrators on the network. It's going to be very hard to pick a limit. Also, the orchestrator, so the broadcaster, if it pings, okay, where was I going with this? I had this thought. It was basically around, oh yeah, so the initial startup of the broadcaster node, it kind of caches who's the closest, but maybe, like, does the broadcaster node go through the discovery process of pinging all the nodes every stream? Or does it get cached and just reuse the same endpoint blindly for a certain amount of time? Does anyone know that?
There is a caching process. I don't know the extent of it.
Because, you know, what like, yeah. Because the other part would be for us to build a middleware where orchestrators have an endpoint that returns where you would like the stream to go, and that takes the entire load off the broadcaster side and puts the entire load on the orchestrator side, and the orchestrator then can have arguably unlimited endpoints, because you're responsible for returning an endpoint that's final, not the broadcaster having to ping 100 endpoints just to find out 100 of them are offline and they all time out.
That's certainly more elegant in some ways.
Right? Like, because this was the idea of a route, like the router, right? Was, you just have one on-chain address. And how many times do we want to update on-chain data, right? If we have 100 endpoints, maybe you got to change an endpoint, so you got to constantly be changing on-chain data. Whereas, wouldn't it be better to have off-chain data as the like the on-chain would just be the single endpoint that the broadcaster pokes, and your router would come back and say, hey, I'd like you to use this endpoint. And then it would ping that endpoint for its whole discovery process of distances and stuff. These were the two different methods, right? So I'm just trying to figure out like what would scale better and make it easier on the Livepeer network in general.
Orchestrator specific middleware sounds like it would scale better to me. Just because that way the requirements are limited to whichever orchestrators want to use that, rather than imposing it upon the whole network.
Right, because maybe this is only a feature that a few orchestrators want to use, like 5 orchestrators. Everyone else just, runs their own single independent node, and they don't need multiple endpoints. Or they want to, use their own version of routing. And it just takes a lot of pressure off the broadcaster node. So Hunter, you think that would be a good approach as well?
Yeah. In general, I'm in favor of approaches that are more modular. I think that the more the network grows, the more likely you're going to have, well, a lot of generalizable use cases, but also a lot of bespoke use cases. And I don't think that a situation where we or the community go implementing things into the core of the software is going to be effective for a lot of those bespoke cases. And if there's a way that you can pursue a modular architecture, I think that's going to be the most effective approach.
Because another architecture for say pools that I was thinking of was, like security aside, let's just assume all good actors. We don't want to have, say, an extra hop through an orchestrator node that is nowhere near the broadcaster or the transcoder, right? Like say you have an LA node and you're broadcasting out of New York, and the person transcoding is also in New York. You have this weird hop where it goes from New York to LA, back to New York to transcode, and then back to LA and then to New York. Like it's like, whereas like that can happen if you're just an independent person, or in a pool setting it can kind of happen if you're really far away. I was thinking, pool operators could hand out an O/T node, and your router would just provide the endpoint. Now, there's other technical issues with this, but the idea would, now your router can handle 1,000 endpoints or 10,000 endpoints. There is no limit, and it has nothing to do with broadcaster implementation. So it gives more modularity to pools as well.
That's interesting. I generally think that the way that we approach pools can mature. I think that especially as the network grows, there will be a chance for pools to get much, much more sophisticated, especially to compete with larger actors that do come into the space.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So I don't know what Alex's response to this was. Apparently he talked to the core team and had some ideas. But this is something that I'm interested in pursuing, because I think it would be an interesting upgrade. It would basically be taking the router software that Yondon had built a couple years ago and reworking it and making it functional. Because I don't think the router executable that comes when you download the software. Even does anyone even use it?
The router?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I asked about it like probably like close to a year ago, and it was kind of like, you can try it if you want, but there's no support for it, and go for it.
Yeah. Well, that exact post is what inspired me to look into this a bit further, because I was like, oh, someone has thought of this, but it doesn't work in the way you like that I described. It actually is kind of the opposite. It just finds O locations from a B, whereas we want it to be the other way around. We want it to be it finds B locations from the O and then returns an endpoint. So, Brad, any thoughts on this?
You covered a lot of it. I think right now the router could be used if you wanted to have 2 orchestrator nodes up, and then it pings every time it does an orchestrator request from the broadcaster. It returns the fastest one. So in theory, you pull one of those orchestrators down, it would still get a response from the other one, right? And send that back. And so it could be used in that manner. I hear what you're saying. The router kind of logic that you're talking about, it's you just want to be able to not use DNS or something like that. You just want to be able the broadcasters to ping your on-chain URL, and what gets sent back is the orchestrator that is the closest to the broadcaster that is pinging it. Looked at this a little bit, and I have kind of a prototype, but it's very rough. It's just basically hacked together at this point. What I couldn't find, other than just using regular ping, is if there's a way to ping the broadcaster. All the communication seems to be from the broadcaster down to the orchestrator. Then the orchestrator being able to call back without a stream or a segment to send back. That's why I was interested to hear what Alex had to say as well.
Yeah. So that'll be an interesting conversation with Alex to see what approach he think would be best. But I like the input that Hunter put forward. Is he likes a more modular? Like I thought maybe more pieces would be more difficult because it's more pieces that can go wrong. But the word modular makes sense because it means that you're giving more options. And I guess, yeah, it's interesting. Is this seem like a big enough problem that people are interested in solving, or is this a very select few of us that think this is a problem?
I mean, I would love to see something like this added.
Yeah, it could be better.
If it's, yeah, I mean, if we cannot rely on, Cloudflare or Amazon for geo routing, then I'm all for it.
Great. We just need someone that knows how to program Go, and we're going to the moon.
You can program it in any language, right? It's just RPC profiles. So in theory, you can program it in any language other than Go. Well, I should qualify that. Any language that could do RPC server calls and ping. That should be most of them, or a decent amount of them, I would think.
So you're telling me I can't program this in HTML, but I'm a master of HTML.
You can try WebAssembly and some web workers and go for it. I have no idea if it'll work or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was someone posted a link onto how to listen to things with Python, so I was going to dive into it, but I'm too busy trying to query on-chain data, or at least the graph, that I'm running out of time. I got to pick and choose what I'm going to work on. But yeah, it's interesting. I think it would be a good upgrade because I think broadcast, like, this really came up because There's a couple reasons. Japan seems like there's a big push there. They have an ambassador. Don't know what that means, but yeah, there's an ambassador over in Japan. They're trying to push for live streaming over there, and like Japan is huge for live streaming. But Xenon, they are their own broadcaster node, right? Or is Catalyst using Studio? Do we know?
No, Studio is using Catalyst. It's the other way around.
Oh, I see. Oh, so Catalyst is a broadcaster node, or are they? Or are
Yeah,
they?
it's the old broadcaster node coupled with Mist.
So when they stream out of Catalyst, that is coming from that local node.
Right, or however they've deployed it.
Yeah. But it's not going through Livepeer Inc. servers if you're running Catalyst.
Correct.
See, okay, this is what I wanted to know, because Xenon has a list of orchestrators that they want to use for streaming, and they're another broadcaster, and they're using Catalyst. But my GeoDNS for Amazon, I literally have it set up only to like handle Livepeer Inc. nodes, right? Like I have California set to LA, I have New York State set to New York, I have Germany set to Frankfurt. If you're out of those bounds at all, like if you're just like in the Midwest, or if you're like it just defaults to one node in New York. So like if you're streaming out of, you know, wherever, India, it defaults to New York, right? It doesn't go to Singapore. And that's obviously my fault on configuration, but instead of me spending a couple days trying to mess around and select all the regions I think should go to different areas in the world, I was like, we should really just build a better system. That was kind of the inspiration to this.
I mean, there are different rules you can set up that will do like, proximity steering and things like that, where you're not actually just specifying each region, but they work sometimes better, or sometimes it works better than other times. I'll say that from my experience.
Yeah, and they're doing a lot of guesswork, because if you don't use Amazon or Cloudflare servers, they're just they're guesstimating your distances based on like 3-point routing. Like they all ping you depend where you think you are, and then they think where the other person is, and they try and determine who would be the closest, which is kind of like, we should just be building that directly into our own network. Like, hey, who's the closest? It's pretty simple, I think.
And you would do that by ping? That was the...
Yeah, like, just I think
Well, you can use latency based routing, but again, it doesn't also work, I guess, necessarily as advertised from some of the stuff we've been finding out with the pool.
But if you're in the middle of South America, and I just don't know what the support is for that type of routing, or middle of Africa, like I just like the routing for Amazon guessing distances is probably less efficient than just us building it directly into the network and just using ping. At least
Right, ping to the actual orchestrator versus through Amazon's edge servers that they use. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because I wrote the original guide on the GeoDNS thing back about a year and a half ago, and it was literally just a hack together to help Nico with his pool. Like, it was like he had a bounty for it, because he had 3 live pool orchestrator nodes, and he was trying to build like one orchestrator per region. And he was like, wait, there's got to be a better way. And I was like, I saw a post somewhere about geo routing with Route 53 with Amazon. And I was like, oh, here. And then I listed out what to do, and I gave it to him as a guide, as a post. And he was like, oh, thanks so much. Like, I have a bounty for this. And I was like, oh, like, don't worry about it. Like, here, like, it's not like I've built anything. I literally just created like a set of like 3 instructions on how to implement this. And then that's what kind of has been the trend now. Like a lot of people are using it, but I don't actually think it's a good option, like long-term solution.
Oh, I remember that, and you opened the door to the multi-location network that most of us are using, or most of the bigger orchestrators are using. So,
yeah, and before that, I was maxing out GPUs in my region, so I feel like I kind of screwed myself a little bit, but that's okay. It's for the better of the network anyway. But that's what I mean.
That's
Like,
the important part.
yeah, well, like if Livepeer is actually going to be successful, like in being a global infrastructure, like the quality and reliability and distribution of this system needs to reach like every corner of the earth and do things that maybe Amazon can't, which is very difficult. Like Amazon does a lot. So, we can't just be a little better. We have to be somehow like a lot better. And so if we're going to do that, obviously sharing an idea of how to get more nodes distributed around the world is probably going to be a good thing. But now I'm trying to think like if you have a broadcaster node in the Congo in the middle of Africa, and you have a orchestrator node also in the Congo. I'm not sure what the presence of Amazon in the Congo is, but you could have a much better infrastructure kind of routing idea if you were to have this type of system that's not reliant on these big boys, right? And so you have much more micro fast connections between them. Obviously, I'm not like an internet guy, but I feel like Andrew would be able to answer these in a very enthusiastic way, but I think he's left. But that
you want to go buy GPUs.
Yeah, I'll sell him an extra 1070 I have lying around. But anyway, that's the thought process behind it. Any comments or questions on that would be greatly appreciated. But steering this conversation in the right direction for the right, because I've flip-flopped a few times. I've went from we need the middleware router to no, we should build this into the broadcaster, and now I'm hearing from Hunter like, hey, maybe we should go with the middleware idea. That's a more modular, better way that keeps the emphasis off the broadcaster and the core, product. So what is the right answer, right?
I would add the caveat that I am not as familiar with the architecture here as someone like Yanan or Tom, and they're a little bit better positioned to answer that question than me. That's just my 2 cents based on like my own engineering background and my knowledge of Go Livepeer from a product perspective.
Yeah. Well, I'm probably the most unqualified person to be talking about this at all, and here I am. So it's just me digging. So any feedback is
and we appreciate you, Titan.
like, yeah. So I'm just trying to dig and pull ideas from people smarter than me. So I do appreciate your feedback, Hunter. I appreciate it. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to continue down that rabbit hole, and I think finding out the best solution to this problem, probably spending more time in figuring out the best solution is going to be better than quickly jumping into something and building it. So yeah, the path we decide to choose is going to be important. So yeah, basically just around fixing the broadcast. It seemed putting the list of endpoints on chain and just having the broadcaster ping them seems like an easy way to do it. It just seems like there also might be some like unattended consequences much later down the road. So I wouldn't want that to be the case. There we go. All right. Where are we at here? We've covered most topics. It wasn't many topics, to be honest. Does anyone have any other topics they want to bring up while we're here?
Can I? I'm gonna put him on the spot, and I'm sorry about that. But Ben or Papa Bear, any updates or how's Video Miner going, or that kind of general question. I know you guys are testing and you guys opened it up a little bit, so I was just curious how everything's going.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Give me 1 sec. My dog just yanked my headphone wire out of my ears. All right, my bad. Apologies. Yeah, it's been fantastic. We actually just met before the water cooler. Lots of stuff in the works. Lots of troubleshooting and testing. It's interesting with the topic of pinging the orchestrators and getting that figured out, because we're also trying to tackle the other side of it, which is how does a transcoder connect to the orchestrators. And we've been thinking of maybe building some sort of load balancer that handles that stuff for that side. And I don't know if that could maybe be used for the broadcasters pinging orchestrators as well, or if that's a completely different system. But that's been a big one. We found some things that definitely need to be tweaked in our performance selection. So that's a huge to do coming up. But it's been really awesome testing with everyone. This one guy I gotta give a shout out to, who's also in Titan Nodes pool. He's been really on top of. Not Weta.
No?
He's great too, but PMC Nano, I think his name is. The guy who like gamed your pool a little bit and figured
Oh
out
yeah.
some
He's a
ways
great
around.
guy
Yeah,
too.
he's been awesome. He's really been like on top of finding stuff that's wrong and helping us fix it. So
Yeah,
that's been great. We're hoping to bring on a few more people like that who like are excited about this stuff and want to break things and help people fix it.
Weta is a good resource too. He's very similar to him, where he's trying out stuff and he reports issues. And right now, I'm working with Weta around how to. Where I'm having an issue with. So he has a GPU. He's gaming on it, and the game he's playing Cyberpunk at 4K, and it just completely decimates his transcoding ability. And so my miner has been shutting off while he's gaming. And so we've been trying to figure out how it could maybe pull resources before Cyberpunk. So I've been messing around with priority levels with Windows to see if Livepeer would take resources before the video game, and so that therefore it could continue to run in the background without any hiccup. But been kind of unsuccessful with it. I have priority set.
Cyberpunk.
Now we know why his performance score is so crappy. I thought it was just because of his location.
His bandwidth is
games.
also pretty low, just in general. I think if he had a gig up and down, that would be a different story. But also Cyberpunk, like that's using everything, right? It's probably like, I don't know what GPU he has.
He's got a
Is it
3080 Ti.
So I mean, he's probably like almost maxing out VRAM.
He's completely maxing it out. Yeah. No. I've been in like chat with him. We've been private messaging because every time, I'm like, he's like, oh, it just keeps shutting off when I'm gaming, and I'm like, oh, what's your local real time score? He's like 0.5, and I'm like, yeah, well, that's because you're transcoding like a potato. Like your CPU can transcode faster than that. Like I was like,
what do you mean by shut off? Is it like exiting the miner on your pool, or is it just not? Is he just not getting streams?
No, my miner
or
shuts.
Are you kicking him out?
No, my miner shuts down if you don't keep a real time score under a certain threshold.
Right.
So mine literally just says like, hey, your real time score is like really bad. Please check to make sure your RAM usage is not way high. Please, and it's shutting down. Like so the way you exit my pool is it shuts down on you, right? I don't block you from my end. And he's like,
we leave you connected, but you just don't get any work. So
Yeah, so
that's one of the things we're fine tuning. Yeah.
Yeah, so your approach is, my approach is on your machine it just shuts down, and on your approach is on your machine it stops sending them streams, which is probably a more of an elegant approach. I just don't know how to do that, so I was like, so I went with this whole shut. But what happens is it reports back to me and tells me what their local real-time score is, and so I know that the reason he's not getting a good score is not because of his internet. It's because he's playing video games,
Right.
and it's taking up all his stuff. So I tried to set it so that Livepeer and the Livepeer bench program get launched with a above normal priority. That didn't help, and then I gave it a high priority, which is like really, you gotta be careful.
That'll screw up everything else on his machine, but sure.
Yeah, I did it anyway. I was like, here's high. Well, it wasn't real. I never sent him to real time because that would actually like blow up his computer, I think. So I was like, here's high priority. Like this is like system level stuff, right? And yeah, Cyberpunk still just completely destroyed it. He was not getting a good score. So I was like, oh, even if Livepeer
I
is
mean, he's never going to get a good score if he's playing Cyberpunk and using up all the RAM on the machine. I mean, I wouldn't think. I mean, I know that there's saying that you can dual mine and all that stuff back in the day when ETH mining was a thing, but I mean, it took a major hit on performance, and I know they're using different chips and all that. I mean, the encoders versus the CUDA cores and all that stuff, but it clearly made a big difference in your transcode speed. So I mean,
I remember Yondon posted something about how you can do some like custom modifications to make dual mining more efficient. I think it was Linux only though.
Yeah, well, that was I think it was basically shutting down the priority towards the ETH miner when streams were coming in.
Oh right, yeah, it was like setting a limit on the VRAM that could be used or something.
Well, I don't remember exactly what it was. It was using the MPS, so it was. But the point is, if you're trying to do both at the same time, it's just not. You're not going to have a good experience. I mean, you're one of them is going to take a hit. In fact, both of them should take a hit. But usually,
well, I don't think I had mine priority set to high, and it sounded like he was still he was playing in 4K, like Cyberpunk 4K, like at like that max settings, right? So like, and I'm like, well, what, I didn't even ask him like turn down your settings. I was more curious, like, how do I fix this? Like, is there a way you can allocate resources that are dedicated to a process in Windows?
I don't know. I mean, and again, I don't know
I mean,
how it would work when you're
I'm not
trying
a
to play
Windows guy,
game.
but it sounds like an impossible test to do. I wouldn't even start with that. If someone's gaming, just ignore them, I think.
Tell them just to buy a 1060 or something, throw it in next to their 1080. And
well, I'm targeting gamers, right? I'm targeting people with
Yeah.
fiber internet who got this gaming computer. Like, they don't have to be playing Cyberpunk. Like, if you're playing, like he said, if you're playing like Minecraft, like you can handle probably full load of streams, right?
Well, depends how many shaders you got installed on that thing. GPUs, they get hammered by a Minecraft installation with a shit ton of mods.
Yeah, well, right. So, my other solution was, as soon as they go over real time, the program pauses and waits until a benchmark comes back that says, "Hey, you're good again," and then it'll restart up. So the idea would be, if you're gaming, it'll just pause, no problem. You can do your gaming, and as soon as you turn it off, it'll restart, and there'll be just like no worries on the back end, right? Because
that's what I was going to suggest. But what happened? I'm assuming you tried that and it didn't work.
No, I hadn't got that far to building in that
okay,
logic.
yeah.
I was just trying to figure out first if there's a better way to do it that could be like better, like just to because
I don't think you want someone who's actively gaming actually transcoding at that time. I think your better bet is to put them on pause for however long, and then give them another shot. Or if you continue to benchmark like you do, until their benchmark meets your cutoff, then turn them back on and let them have another shot at it. But I don't think you're ever going to get a good result if they're playing games and transcoding. Well, and
At the
again,
moment,
you're
do
getting real
they?
time data. I mean, like if they're transcoding in real time or fast enough for what you consider to be okay. So if they're not, then I think you just give them a timeout.
Yeah. I'm getting into the real nitty gritty of like other people mining, right? Because like if I was running my own orchestrator node with my own GPUs and stuff, like none of this game theory or trying to figure out how to deal with people gaming, like none of this would even exist. But I do believe this is where Livepeer really shines, is unlocking like idle compute that is being available on gaming computers that are either playing really low quality games or in between games, or like this guy just leaves his computer on all the time, but he's only gaming for a few hours a day, right? So like, you can, like, he was kind of upset he only got like $1 payout so far, but the fact is he's willing to accept $1 payout, which means we're really unlocking like a massive discount of compute power, like to the point where like Amazon couldn't even compete because this is literally idle compute power that nobody even cares about, like having their computer on, right? You're just not going to be able to beat that floor compared to Amazon. So the
But
real,
that's my point.
yeah,
Was just like, when they're not using the computer, that's when you use it. When they
mhm,
are using it, I think you're better off
yeah.
not using it.
So
I mean, that's just
yeah,
from
so I think your suggestion about just when they're gaming, pause it. That's probably the best solution.
Because right now they have to manually restart the transcoder, right?
Yeah. Mine
Okay.
goes full shutdown mode if you fail a benchmark, but like it doesn't need to. It can just go into pause mode where it goes, "Hey, I'm pausing until resources open back up," and then when they're open back up, great, we're running again, right? Because basically every time he games, it shuts off, and he's like, "Oh, this sucks."
Yeah, that sounds like a really good solution. As long as the transcoder, if they have to do anything manually on their side, that's always kind of a headache for
Yeah,
them, obviously.
yeah. No one likes doing stuff, right? They just want it to run in the
Exactly.
background and not think about it. So, and I'm
I
also,
think as long as the expectation is that, while you're gaming, you're not going to be receiving streams, but as soon as you stop, or soon after you stop, then you're back on.
Because that's essentially what we're doing in a way, right? Is their performance drops below a certain threshold when they're gaming or doing whatever, and we just don't send them work until they get back above that threshold. So it's
Well,
it's similar.
except for there's no recovery here, right? We don't try them again until they are part of the top performers again. So we need to fix sending low quality streams to low
Right.
performers first.
so you
Yeah,
need
right
to
now-
send like test streams kind of to your transcoders.
Yeah,
I don't
think-
think we're going with that approach, but yeah, we need to monitor. I mean, I think we are, Marco, correct me if I'm wrong. We're monitoring live data, right?
Yes.
Like constantly.
The problem is once you get shunned, you're pretty much shunned until you
Yeah,
start up
the
again,
issue-
or if everyone else's score drops so low that then you become eligible again.
Yeah, what we have right now is so strict that it's just a bit too much. So what needs to change on our side is the way we're calculating performance and what criteria does a transcoder need to have to receive certain streams.
Like, we're moving toward, or what we're trying to move towards, is if your performance isn't as good, you won't get the higher multi-rendition streams. You'll get like a 1080p stream. I mean, sorry, a 480p stream. You won't get the 1080s and the 720s and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, but don't you still have a problem with the decoding on that, or you just?
We
Yeah, 'cause
monitor the decode and the encode.
Yeah. Oh,
separately.
I see. Right. Okay. Well, the way you guys have it set up is better. Like you don't have to worry about them locally doing stuff. You just care about how fast you get it back, and regardless of what's going on, you can prioritize your streams and your distribution of work based on that. What's nice about your guys' too is the you have it set up as a service, so it just runs in the background. You don't even see an icon for it anywhere, really.
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you
speedy
open
eventually,
you
the
open it up
goal
if
is
you
that we
want.
create some kind of GUI for it to interact with the
for Windows
service.
at
But
least.
right now,
Yeah.
it's for at least for the Windows-based one, create a GUI for it. That way, like you can kind of read the logs through a GUI. You can start, stop, restart the service, stuff like that. But I have to learn how to program for that. So
Yeah, I'm just trying to make mine minimized to the system tray at least, but like
Mhm.
I don't even know how to do that. I have to use like this like Python package for being able to do that. It's like a GUI package, but you can, I don't know. I've got to look into it a bit further, but yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, it's a, I think, yeah, tapping into that untapped um, compute on gaming PCs is going to be huge. Also because if AV1 ever takes off, like there's not a lot, like a lot of the ETH miners and stuff, they have like 1070s and 1080s, which are great for Livepeer now. But if AV1 becomes a thing, then like 40 series cards are going to be the bee's knees because they can do AV1 encoding and decoding. And all these like old miners that are doing like 10 series, 20 series mining, like they're just obsolete now.
I guess the NetEnt cards can do AV1 too, right? So the ASICs might become
Yeah, but
worthy.
that's not what. But Titan's talking about gamers, so they're not going to have.
Oh, right. They're not going to have
right.
NetEnt cards. Yeah.
Because also like the like the like the because another question from Weta was, you know, can this be supported on Hive OS? And I guess Hive OS is Linux 16, which is pretty old, I think, right? And I was like, wait, but like as we go forward, like, do we really want to be supporting Hive OS? Like, is that our target market? So
Probably not, right? Because miners don't really have a focus on bandwidth.
Oh.
And I don't.
I have already done something for iOS. I already done a custom miner you can use with iOS.
oh, is that right?
So sorry.
What do you mean by a custom binary for Hive OS? What are you saying?
On iOS, you can download custom miners, and I did one for Livepeer.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I post on the forum, and I was using two on iOS, so it's working.
Oh, can you share that in the water cooler side chat?
Yeah, give me 1 sec.
Cool. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, these are interesting problems. Like Hunter was saying,
Yeah,
though.
I think
Yeah, go ahead.
it's interesting from a pool perspective. You know, you have a lot of different users coming in, and some of them might want to have a package available for all kinds of operating systems and whatever layout they're using. So it's pretty cool to see. There's a lot of interest for this stuff.
And what I'm noticing is if you make it easy and seamless, they stick around. Like I had one guy join the pool, and he was like, in 2 days, he was like, this isn't profitable enough. I'm leaving. And I'm like, okay. Like,
And my script on iOS is auto-updating. When there is a new Livepeer version, it's updating the transcoder.
oh, very cool. Yeah, I'll look into that. That's neat. This is for an orchestrator? Is that what you built this for?
I was using it, but you can just add your settings on it. So anyone can use it.
Yeah, you just change the flags, right? Just to make it a transcoder.
Yeah, there is the same flag as Livepeer.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Cool, cool. All right. Well, any other topics we want to go through? Quick update. The Lens people, they're still approving. Somehow I sent a link with all of our addresses in it, and it got moved on to another person, and that person's like, "Oh, I don't have a link to all your addresses." So I'm like, we're in the email black hole of getting addresses signed up with Lens, which is kind of weird. Yeah, so still waiting on approval for that. So just a heads up.
Lovely.
Bada boom. Cool. Okay. Well,
We appreciate it.
what we'll do is end it now. Just 20 minutes past the hour. What I'll do is I will try and get Tom on here next week. And yeah, do a bit of a Q&A session and hopefully get some technical details and maybe talk more about these topics. Yeah, in the meantime, I hope everyone has a good rest of the week. Happy Monday, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.
Awesome.
Everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye.